Well, we can think of Mars as the god of war, can't we? Difficulty. Interesting that Marshall, my name, Mars Hall of the Mountain King, sounds grim to me, sounds a bit Hitler-like. And maasion, something a bit close about it, Mars in there. You say, oh, this sort of name and number stuff is superstition. It is, you're right. And Christians have claimed to have nothing to do with superstition, which is a received honourable approach, and hard to defend Pentecostalism on such grounds, isn't it? What was my view? There were more demons in a Pentecostal church than outside. I think the pastor's view was they all come flocking in because, well, either they wish to change things or they come to receive help. Yes. Marshall meant the keeper of horses, I think. And of course the horse is, well, it was the early tank, wasn't it? Mobile, powerful. How do you fight a horseman warrior? Especially if he's got a bow as well as a spear or a lance or whatever. It's all a bit of worldliness, isn't it? And Maasion's theory seems to have been much of that, doesn't it? The two gods, the demiurge, is it called, that created the world, the Old Testament God as he saw it. And then the God of the Jesus story, perhaps his story, fleshing out the details of what he took Paul's theology to be, a transformation from God of war to a God of love. All that ever went before me were thieves and robbers. Wow. And John the Baptist is the greatest of those born of women, but the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than him. What is all this teaching? Quite staggering if you set it against a pseudo-Judaic world of the Roman era. It's Greek. It's written in Greek. Probably by a Greek. An emancipated Greek, you see, they could look at a foreign religion and analyse it. They were theologians in the making, weren't they, for real? Goodness gracious. They make the 19th century German theologians look like children. Of course, it helped if you were claiming this transformation of the appropriate God to follow if you yourself were not living in what we might call the Holy Land, which was not too holy at the time. And especially if you were surrounded by a Roman culture and system that would accept anything provided you also worship the emperor. Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Oh, right. Oh, well, that's no threat to us then. Good. And viewed as from being Greek, you could empathize with Rome that, well, in many ways emulated and copied the Greek gods, of course, and so on. And had terrible trouble with some of the religions, the religions of its extensive empire. The last thing you want is rebellion, and rebellion seems to come from some very earnest different religions, especially Judaism. So Maasion's in a much freer environment to speak out against. But then, of course, in the unpredictability of the of the world, Rome starts to foster its own hybrid of the Christianity. In many ways, just the literalism of the Gnostic understanding of Jesus. Well, probably understanding of the Jesus story. And it's not happening in Maasion's time. It may be written into the history, but it's from something like a time much more localized to Constantine, 340 or somewhere around there. Not Maasion, I think, dies in 160. Maasion, in the fullness of time, gets anathematized by, of course, the Roman Church. And it's less likely that it's a heresy, but that the heresy is the Roman Church. Maasion Christianity is what the bulk of Christianity probably is before the Roman Church gets its act together in the interest of the Roman Empire. In particular, the emperor, who's a very doubtful Christian, leave alone a follower of Jesus. Well, there's lies, damn lies, in the history that we're left with. Or should I say the historicity that we're left with. And we are left with the typical uncertainty as to what the truth of the matter really is when it comes to what should be historical content. And to be sure of such. But the history, as it turned out in the next few thousand years of Christianity, Roman Christianity, is not too good, to say the least. In many ways, anything but glorifying to God. Or you could, in more Marcionite manner, say, appropriate to the wrong God. But we're thinking as a Greek now, not as a Jew, not as Roman Church. And I don't mean, of course, that Catholic Church is what Roman Church was, only that in some sense it's developed from it. Yes, thinking as a Greek, we're not using the words in quite the same ways. When we talk about gods, we mean gods from a Greek point of view, which is mythology. I mean, the Greeks weren't daft. They didn't see God in the same tangible way as you do when you're handling a myth. A myth is simply authoritative in some, well, Gnostic sense. It tries to make concrete, tangible, the intangible. You know, thoughts are intangible, aren't they? Values are intangible. Moods are pretty intangible too, aren't they? The intangible is the reality world that we live in. We live in our thoughts. The external world only comes into our mind via thought, and we handle it there, so to speak, and then purpose to affect the outside world according to what we make of it. But the battleground and the struggle is within the mind. Hence, if you choose to believe a certain thing, your struggles are different in the mind. Perhaps eased in some way. Trusting in God may, give you a more methodical, consistent pattern of purpose through time that achieves more in some sense. It's that sort of. So when we're talking about gods, we're not in some pre-Judaic Hebrew powerful beings that rule the heavens, material beings that apparently have to go to war at times and roar with thunder from the mountains and so on. This is not the Jesus God. Jesus God is Greek. Jesus is Greek. The author's Greek. It's written in Greek. It's a theologian's take on how can we improve this mess that this rebellious but fascinating Judaic culture presents to us in the empire. And it's not seeing the empire as all evil and Hebrewism is all good. On the contrary, it's seeing it the other way round, that, my goodness, this primitive view of religion and God needs an upgrade, and Marcion's the man who's going to do it. And does, and is most acceptable to the people. And it is what Christianity is, before the Roman Church decides to use it to its nefarious purpose, of course. That of what we would see from a Jesus point of view as an extremely worldly, corrupt emperor. So that's Marcion for you, and that's why the recording I called Marcion here, I did call Love originally, because that is the content of the importance of what the change is. It's not obedience, it's love. That's what the Jesus story is about, as I see it, and Maasion seems to make it. I was going to say see it, but I think he made it. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he wasn't the author of the original gospel that he's credited with having. And we'll never know. Well, I don't think, well, we'll know in heaven, but we don't know here. Here there's always uncertainty. And love you, Heavenly Dad. Thank you, Dad.